Hello, grade 11 learners. Happy 6th week of learning. We are moving towards the end of the first quarter, and it feels great for this another opportunity to learn some significant lessons in earth signs. So for today, we are going to learn the different human activities that affect the quality and quantity of soil. So as you see in the picture, we have here farming, we have construction of building, and waste disposal. So these are just some of the activities that may affect the quality of our soil. The number one human activity that may affect the quality or the structure of the soil is farming, to soil production. But we all know that farming also contributes to the production of crops in soil. Now, how does farming negatively affect the quality of our soil? So let's talk about the number one activity in farming. The first one is tillage. So when we say tillage, it is when the farmers cultivate the land in order to prepare it for crop production. So it's the number one element in crop production. So what happens during tillage is it will actually lose the soil and make it potential for some soil erosion, and there is also like damage in growth and cellular functions and overall species diversity in soil. So it disrupts the soil structure. That's why some soil microorganisms will also be damaged during the process of tillage. Now, the next one is the pesticides. So farmers really use pesticides in order to protect their crops from the pests. Now, they are a diverse group of chemicals, and they control insects and other organisms harmful to cultivate plants and animals in their farms. But these pesticides have also long-term effects to the soil quality when it comes to like its fertility, because it will kill other useful microorganisms that are present in the soil, okay, and there will be less soil production for fertility, and these microorganisms wouldn't be there anymore to make the soil fertile, and they're rich in other nutrients that will help the plants grow. So that is the side effects of using pesticides in the crops. Now, another is the use of veterinary medicines. So the direct application of antimicrobials and nematicides, usually used as veterinary medicines to soil, has been shown to have negative impact on soil organisms. Now, still, it gives negative effect to the soil organisms that are present in the soil for soil quality. There is also an evidence to reduce numbers and activity of dung beetles, okay, the dung of the beetles, where vet drugs are used regularly. So retarded decomposition rates of dung are likely to have an impact on their soil organisms and reduce the positive impact that dung can have in maintaining soil health. So we know that these microorganisms present in soil are very significant for the fertility of the soil, as what I have said. Now, just like the dung of the beetles. So because of the presence of these vet medicines, these microorganisms couldn't function anymore. The next one is herbicides. So herbicides have both the positive and the negative effects to soil once they are used in farming. So we know that the other term for herbicides is like they are the weeds killer, since that they are made of chemical substances that are used to control the growth of unwanted plants or other living organisms that may compete the plants from water and nutrients and light. So because of this, some nutrients of the soil will be preserved. That is the positive effect. With the use of herbicides, since there will be no competition among unwanted living organisms and plants that are there in the farm, then the nutrients of the soil will be preserved. But the negative effect of it is they also release some toxins, and they have some modifications of the soil fertility and even the air temperature. that will also contribute to soil pollution. So once the soil will be contaminated, now it will also give water pollution, since this contamination will be carried over by the water. Now, one of the positive effects of farming is the use of lime and mineral fertilizers. So these are the major components of the fertilizer. So they used to provide stable, optimum growing conditions to meet plants' nutrient demand and maintain a balanced nutrient budget. So this is one of the advantage of using minerals or organic fertilizers in farming. So in general, lower rates of applications are used in grassland and in cropping systems. However, intensive dairy pastures may receive high rates of nitrogen fertilizers. So in general, balanced fertilization has a positive impact on soil health. So it's advisable that farmers may use only lime and some mineral fertilizers or organic fertilizers in crop production. Another positive effect of farming to soil is when they have this growing plants. So when plants grow, they directly link to soil organisms. So it is the plant that provides energy through the root growth and exudations in the soil during growth, and the amount of quality of litter or residues returning to the soil. So the action of roots is important for the development and stabilization of soil structure. Now we know that with the presence of these roots, it will produce stability of soil because they absorb also water. And once there is like heavy rain, they won't experience, or the land structure won't experience soil erosion because those roots will hold the soil together. So there is stabilization. So roots tend to compress soil in the vicinity, changing pore size distribution. So growing plants is one of the major activity in farming that has positive effect to the soil. Another is the using of organic manures and other organic fertilizers mentioned earlier. So these materials provide inputs of organic matter, thus providing a source of energy, food for many of the soil organisms. So because we are using only organic fertilizers, there are no presence of chemicals that may harm the microorganisms. So these microorganisms that are present in soil will be built up, and they may reproduce more, and they could fertilize the soil naturally. So therefore, when applied regularly, organic fertilizers input generally led to an increase in the population of all soil organisms, which will also benefit to soil fertility. Another use of drainage irrigation is also one of the positive effects of farming that may help to the stability of the soil. So the main effect of irrigation and drainage on soil organisms and consequently on soil health is indirect. Now we all know that by regulating the seasonal effects of rainfall patterns, irrigations or drainage tend to stabilize the soil moisture. That is the best effect of using drainage and irrigation. So the stability of the soil moisture away from some extremes. So irrigations in dry seasons reduces also the disturbance effect of soil drying. Yeah, so if we don't have rain for so long, for like during summer or during dry season, so it's not a worry to have a dry soil because we have provided water, okay, to make the soil maintain its moisture, okay, to support also the growth of plants. So this can increase the length of time during which soil organisms are active. Now, another human activity that we are looking into that may affect, of course, the structure of the soil, its quality, is the construction of structures, the different structures. So nowadays, we know that this has caused a lot of disruptions to our soil production, in the sense that people tend to construct a lot of structures, okay, because it also represents how productive or how developed a certain place is once we see a lot of structures. But we also forget that it somehow harms also our soil in the other way. So soil quality is often overlooked as a crucial component in urban areas, as well as the agricultural environment. So urban development activities can cause rapid soil degradation and sedimentation. So once we have this building of different structures, we know that it degrades the soil productivity because with the presence of other components that will lose its fertility. So soil erosion and sedimentation from construction sites can be significant in quality and in the impact of off-site resources such as streams. So erosion, which produces sediment, is accelerated when soil is disturbed and exposed to rainfall. So construction activities such as grading and filling reduce soil quality on construction sites. And another human activity which we somehow often observe in our environment that surely affects the soil productivity is the waste disposal. So harmful chemicals that we got from the different waste, okay, the presence of the chemicals and other substances in there, contaminants, that will surely develop soil pollution. So this can harm the plants when they take up the contamination through the roots. If humans eat plants and animals that have been in contact with such polluted soil, there can be a negative impact on their health. So that's one of the things that we should look into. Especially, we should provide some local solution to this problem on the waste disposal, especially to some crowded places. We often forget that this part of our day-to-day experience or day-to-day activity, like the way we dispose, reuse materials, or even dump our waste, could oftentimes lead to some problem in our soil productivity. So let us help preserve our soil. Now, in your activity 1, case study pages 26 to 27, this will serve as your major output in the first quarter for earth science. So in the instruction, you're going to gather the necessary information about how do human activities affect soil in different situations. Let us try to find out what are the human activities that affect the quality and availability of soil by analyzing the different illustration given. So your analysis should be including general sections like introduction, the background information, evaluation of the case, the proposed solution, and the recommendation. So I want you to identify in your area, in your local areas, on the human activities that may affect the quality and availability of the soil. And I want you to follow the following format in doing this case study. So in doing your case study, you have at least 5 parts to follow. The first one is your introduction. So what do you put in your introduction? You're going to include there the key problems about the issue, the thesis statements, and the outcomes of the related analyses. You put there in the introduction. And the second one is the background information. So when we say background information, these are the relevant facts and these are the relevant facts that present most important. Okay. When we say relevant, when we say background information, so we want you to present here some relevant facts and most important issues about soil conditions in different situations that can be pointed out through your analysis. Yeah, so you have to discuss here about the different soil conditions maybe in your area. What do you notice? Your general observation that will lead to the specific analysis of your problem. Third is your evaluation. So in this part, you're going to evaluate the effects of human activities to soil. You have identified already what are these activities, and you have to evaluate what effects do these activities give to the soil, and find any person connected to the issue, know their experience and daily cycle. So maybe if you know someone who has a relevant job or let's say function about this study, so you may also have a one-on-one interview with that person and relate the information that you got from that person in the third part of your case study, your evaluation. And then the next one is the proposed solution. So here in the proposed solution, once the problem is already identified, you're going to state now your proposal. That will be a reliable, significant, and workable solution about the issue, and explain why you chose that solution. So you're just going to identify the problem, no? In the evaluation, you discussed already there what are the problems that you have cited, and then in the proposed solution, based from the existing problems that you mentioned, what do you think is the best solution for that? Okay, and maybe you can provide some citation. Yeah, not maybe, you provide some citation and also support from other studies. And the last one is your recommendation. Explain your own strategy and experience while doing the research, and if your solution is effective, how it could be done and how should they do it. So that's how you recommend in the last part of your case study. So explain everything that you have gone through in doing the research, and then determine whether your solution is effective or not effective, and what would be your recommendation, maybe a future study about the solution of the case that you have started. If you haven't resolved the issue, then maybe you can recommend some researchers to continue that study. Okay, so that is a case study for activity 1, pages 26 to 27. So the deadline for this activity will not be this week, but it will be submitted at the end of the quarter, week 8. So 3 weeks from now. Now in lesson 12, we are going to discuss the soil conservation. Now, in the picture, you see there the different importance of soil, okay, to every one of us. So here in soil, we find some nutrient cycling, we have nitrogen fixation, there is like plant protection, they protect our plants, there is suppression of some pathogens, and then detoxification of some pollutants. It also influences atmospheric composition, some decomposition residues, water filtration, and they can also store water. It can also store water, water flow, and aggregation formation. And of course, the most important one is the growth of the plants, all because of the soil. So we see how significant soil is in our lives, and not only to our lives but to all living organisms around us. If the soil loses its productivity, then we lose also our lives. So what are the things that we can do in order to conserve our soil? Okay, conserve soil. How do we save our planet Earth? Number one is to conserve the soil. So soil is a number one thing that produces a lot of things that contribute life. So tree planting is number one way of conserving soil. So what's with tree planting? So when we plant trees and plant more plants, the roots of trees firmly hold on the soil, making it stagnant and prevent soil erosion. So the composition of the soil will become more stable, the structure of it will become stabilized once there are trees planted around, because the roots will help them hold together. And as they grow, the roots go deeper and spread wider into the soil. In addition, soil under a vegetative cover is saved from erosion due to wind, as this cover acts as a wind barrier. Another activity that we can do in order to conserve the soil is crop rotation. This can be done by the farmers. So farmers can help in conserving soil. Now, we don't know if you will become a farmer someday or what, but if you do, apply this one on conserving soil by rotating the crops. So what is this crop rotation? So a crop rotation is like planting various or varied plants or crops in one setting, or maybe alteration of planting crops in different periods of time. So some pathogens tend to build up in soil if the same crops are cultivated again and again. So as you can see, farmers do not plant potatoes for all throughout the year. So after they harvested the potato, they plant cabbage, after cabbage another crop like corn, after corn carrots, after carrots another. So why? Because there is like building up of pathogens once you are cultivating the same crops over and over again. So continuous cultivation of the same crops also leads to imbalance in the fertility demands of the soil. That is one of the reasons. So to save the soil from these adverse effects, crop rotation is practiced. So it is a method of growing a series of dissimilar crops in an area, dissimilar different crops in one area in one setting. Or crop rotation also helps in the improvement of soil structure and fertility, because we know that the plants that farmers planted have different root types, and yeah, they have different composition also at the same time, and they also have like different methods in taking good care of these crops. So it helps actually preserve the soil in the sense. The third one is the maintaining the soil pH level. So contamination of soil by addition of acidic or basic pollutants and due to acid rains has an adverse effect on the soil. So farmers who are taking good care of the soil should also know how to maintain the soil pH level. So if it's already becoming acidic or not, because if it's acidic, then that soil is not really fertile and not productive for crop production. The uptake of nutrients by plants also depends on the pH of the soil. So maintaining the correct value of soil pH is essential for soil conservation. Next is growing indigenous crops. So to some places, they apply this conservation of soil by growing indigenous crops. So when we say indigenous crops, these are crops that are native crops, so that are beneficial for soil conservation. So if non-native plants are grown, fields should be bordered by indigenous crops to prevent soil erosion, thus achieving soil conservation. So if, for example, you don't have the chance to have these native plants as your main crops in your farm, then it's best or helpful to plant this just around your field as your like border, okay, so that soil erosion can also be prevented. Yeah, surprisingly, another way of conserving the soil is the terrace building. It's a common thing in some slopey areas. So a terrace is a leveled section of a hilly cultivated area having its unique topography. So it prevents rapid surface runoff of water because of the roots of the plants that are present in those areas. So soil erosion could be prevented. So terracing gives the landmass a stepped appearance like the famous Philippine rice terraces, okay, in Benguet, thus slowing the washing down of soil as what I've mentioned. So dry stone walling is a method used to create terrace in which stone structure are made without using mortar for binding. So it's like the area around it are already pressed or hardened, so that only the place the part of the terrace where they could plant crops. Yeah, opposite of tilling is a no-till farming, one way of conserving also our soil. So tilling is the process of preparing soil for plowing, as we mentioned a while ago. So in conserving the soil, non-tilling farming, which is a way of growing crops without disturbing it through tillage, is highly recommended, but it's too hard to follow because farmers need to cultivate the land to loosen the soil in order for the crops to grow better. But in conserving the soil, it's advisable to use no-tilling farming. Yeah, as part of your activity in lesson 10, you are asked to do poster making. So people work in unity when they are aware of the real vision and purpose of certain movement or program. So that is why it is important that they are being enriched with core information. So when an individual knows the issue When an individual knows the issue, he or she can proactively participate in each activity initiated by an organization and government. So to help increase the awareness, your task is to make a poster that shows the importance of soil and how it will be conserved and protected. So below are the sample and rubrics for grading the output. So I'll be giving the rubrics for the grading during the posting of your activity. So I want you to make a poster. So in this poster, you're going to show how the soil can be conserved and protected at the same time. So once again, this is your teacher in Earth Science Grade 11. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you all next week. Goodbye and have a great week ahead.